Sometimes it doesn't matter how good you are. If your opponent has an insurmountable advantage or attribute that just makes them overpowered. That's right. Today, we're going to be talking about the most overpowered fighters in all of MMA. These are guys that have attributes that, as I said, are just insurmountable. They're too much to get around. Whether it's their cardio, their power, or their durability, these are guys that have weaponized these attributes to become almost unbeatable. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Cardio. Merab Dvalishvili is an absolute beast. This guy has the best cardio in UFC history, and no, that is not an exaggeration. That's right, Merab Dvalishvili is terrifying to fight, not because he's gonna knock you out, not because he's gonna submit you or hold you down on the ground or beat your ass on the feet, but he's just an absolute avalanche that is constantly bumping into you, shoving you around the octagon, and it never ends. He gets right in front of you and spams takedowns, and if he's on the feet, he's spamming combinations. It's just a tornado constantly moving forward, suffocating you. Oh, you can stuff 20 of the takedowns? Here's a 21st. Here's a 22nd. Most fighters have to stop shooting takedowns because they'll just gas themselves out. In fact, grappling is the most taxing thing you can do in the octagon, especially if you're failing takedowns. This man just flings himself at his opponents, knowing goddamn well that he's never gonna tire out. And even if you stuff every single one of them, you're just getting shoved into the fence. Eventually, you're going to break and get tired. And he proved this against Petr Yan, who we all know has a really good pace. Petr Yan made a career out of breaking people, out of standing in front of people, walking them down, and just having his opponents fade in front of him. When he stepped up to fight Merab Dvalishvili, we all thought, or at least 90% of us, that Petr Yan was going to walk down Merab, stuff his takedowns, and eventually knock him down. It made perfect sense. No one breaks Petr Yan. No one outpaces Petr Yan, and Merab's not dangerous on the feet. Petr Yan stuffs takedowns, and Merab doesn't hold people down. How the fuck can Merab win? But we didn't expect the most impressive endurance and cardio ever in a fight. Merab Dvalishvili landed 147 significant strikes against Petr Yan on the feet, over 200 total strikes, most of which, as I said, are on the feet. This is a high pace for a high output striker in a 5-rounder. But Merab Dvalishvili wasn't out there striking. He was shooting takedowns, 50 of them. In fact, he went 11 out of 49 for takedowns. He only secured 11 of them and could barely rack up any control time. And whereas 99% of other grapplers, 99.9% of them, would gas out after getting most of their takedowns stuffed and they would just stop shooting them, Merab Dvalishvili doesn't and just keeps going. The dangerous thing in fighting Merab Dvalishvili is, again, not that you're gonna get hurt, it's just that you can't get going on him. If you're expecting a stand-up battle, he's gonna spam takedowns. If you're expecting the takedown, he's gonna spam combinations on the feet, and it never ends. You are going to slow down, and it's just a reaction fight. That's all you're doing. You're just reacting to whatever Merab is up to. And that is horrific for his opponents. You can't get around it. I think this guy is going to be a champion, and in order to beat him, you're gonna have to knock him clean out or submit him in the first round. That's really your only chance, because by the time the second, third, fourth, and fifth gets going, he's picking up the pace more and more, and you're just, as I said, stuck there reacting, defending takedowns, scrambling up to your feet, getting overwhelmed with strikes. There's just nothing you can do about it. He is the epitome of weaponizing pace in MMA, and for that reason, he's overpowered. Max Holloway may just be the most overpowered fighter in UFC history. Not only does this guy have the best chin of all time, his volume is absolutely off the charts. The most strikes ever landed in the UFC, Max Holloway leads the pack by a mile, just recently crossing over the 3,000 significant strike mark. There is almost no chance you can keep up with him for 5 rounds and go punch for punch with him, tit for tat with him, it ain't gonna happen, all right? For every single shot you throw, he's gonna throw 5, and if you try to throw 5 with him, you're gonna gas yourself out. And there's no point in trying to pick your shots either. That's just a losing battle too, because it doesn't matter how hard you hit the guy. Despite absorbing the most strikes ever, he's not been dropped once. So it's literally impossible to beat this man on the feet unless you're also overpowered. And the only way you can really get him out of there is by taking him down and trying to submit him. And he has really good takedown defense. So it's just a losing battle. This is why he's overpowered. And we've seen it time and time again. He's had multiple record-breaking performances in the UFC. The first one over Brian Ortega back in 2018. Max Holloway landed 290 significant strikes and 307 total strikes. Brian Ortega literally could not get up for the 5th round. The doctor had to step in and stop it. And if you think that's crazy, wait until you find out about what he did to one of the best boxers in the UFC in Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar took Max Holloway 5 rounds, but at what cost? He absorbed 445 significant strikes. And as far as the shots absorbed to the head, Calvin Kattar took 274 shots to the head. I mean, that's just scary to think about. And the most daunting thing about this performance, if you're one of Max Holloway's future opponents, is the fact that Calvin Kattar landed over 130 significant strikes on Max Holloway. Pretty much most of them to the head, all hard power shots. That isn't a significantly low output. That's actually, a pretty decent pace for your average fighter. But because Max has such a granite chin, your punches really don't faze him. And if you want to land one shot, you're going to have to eat 6. And the judges are going to see that every time. If you can't keep up a furious output and pace, you're fucked in front of Max Holloway. And there's only one man that's been able to beat this guy multiple times, and that guy's in this video too. You can't knock him down, you can't finish him on the feet, and you cannot outpoint him. So at the end of the day, you may as well not fight the guy. He's gonna beat you unless you're overpowered. You have no choice, you're going to war. That's right, there's nothing you can do to have a clean chess match of a fight against Jiri Prochazka. Jiri Prochazka is like a tornado with spikes on it, lit on fire, that is constantly moving forward at the speed of light towards you. How do you deal with it? I don't know, you may have a solution, but you're gonna get burned, you're gonna get spiked, and you're gonna leave the fight hurting and injured. Jiri Prochazka is a wrecking ball. He brings it every goddamn time. I've never not seen a Jiri Prochazka fight that wasn't an all-out war. This guy damn near has a 100% finish rate, whether it's him getting KO'd or him knocking his opponents out. He is the most entertaining fighter in the UFC for all-out scraps. And it helps that he has dynamite in his hands. This guy has such a phenomenal highlight reel of KOs. Some of the most brutal finishes and greatest fights I've ever seen. If I had to bet my life on one fighter to have an absolutely crazy fight every single time they show up to the octagon, Jiri would be the guy that I would bet on. Without a doubt, every single time this guy fights, it's going to be a fight of the year candidate. And the reason I say he's overpowered is because it doesn't really matter how skilled you are, how clean and technical you are on the feet or on the ground. He's going to move forward and you're going to be in a war, an all-out scrap right away. And that's why Jiri Prochazka is so dangerous, because he basically makes it a 50-50 fight right off the rip. Are you gonna KO me or am I gonna knock you out? How do you perform under high stakes when you have knockout blows swinging past your ear, grazing past your face every few seconds? The only way to beat this man and leave the cage unscathed is to have some incredible submission skills and wrestling. You have to take him down and you have to submit him. If you can't do that easily, you're, again, in a 50-50 slugfest with Jiri Prochazka, who has one-shot knockout power, probably more than you, and you're fighting for your goddamn life. Pick your poison. Do you want to strike or do you want to get destroyed on the ground? There's literally no way to best this guy, and he's just too skilled. He's too well-rounded. Alexander Volkanovski, the man that beat Max Holloway 3 times and 50-40-5'd him. That's right, furious pace, high output striking, extreme speed, faster than basically everyone else in his division, and having insanely good grappling, which was recently presented to us in the Islam Makhachev fight. We were all saying that Volkanovski was gonna get squashed. He was gonna get crushed. He's too small for Islam. This is a striker. This guy can't grapple with the biggest, most dangerous grappler in the 155-pound weight class, but we were wrong. Volkanovski arguably beat Islam Makhachev according to like half of the fans. And this man, despite getting taken down a few times in that fight, Volkanovski had the biggest moment on the ground, in which he landed great ground and pound on Islam Makhachev for a minute straight to finish off the fight, beating on Islam's body, beating on his head, and this was after he dropped him. Now, why is dropping Islam Makhachev so impressive, or landing over 150 total strikes on Islam impressive? Because Islam Makhachev, prior to the Volkanovski fight, was statistically the hardest man to hit in all of MMA. Alexander Volkanovski landed more strikes on Islam than 5 of Islam's previous opponents combined. And if you want to look at the work he's done in the featherweight division, we know he's beat Max Holloway 3 times, but he's destroyed everyone else. Outside of that Max Holloway rematch, he has not lost a single round against anyone. He hasn't lost a round to Ortega, hasn't lost a round to Aldo, hasn't lost a round to Korean Zombie or Chad Mendes. There is no one else that is this dominant in the UFC. Even champions like Kamaru Usman, who was considered to be a dominant champion at his time, had lost rounds to guys like Gilbert Burns. He had lost rounds to people like Colby Covington. We're talking about a guy that isn't losing rounds for like 6 goddamn years, other than 2 out of 15 to Max Holloway. Arguably the best striker in the UFC, a furious pace, high output, hits pretty hard, an absolute tank of a man. And when it comes to the grappling, he's able to go out there and do great things against Islam Makhachev, who's the most dangerous grappler in the UFC. He's able to land ground and pound on Islam. He's able to stuff Islam's takedowns despite being outweighed by 10 to 15 pounds. He's able to go out there and destroy Brian Ortega on the ground after getting out of a submission hold. That's right, he almost finished Ortega twice in the 3rd and 4th round of their fight with ground and pound. How many guys are sitting on top of Brian Ortega just teeing off on him? So Volkanovski is truly dangerous everywhere the fight goes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I want to know, who is your most overpowered fighter in the UFC? Which guy do you think is just insurmountable in certain areas? Until next time.
Everyone thinks it's hard to get lean. Oh, it's too difficult. I'm too lazy to eat well. In reality, that's just a big fat excuse. You just don't know how to cook. And if you know how to make healthy food taste good, it's 100 times easier to stick to your diet. Today, I'm gonna show you guys how to make a classic comfort food with whole and unprocessed ingredients. Let's make some chocolate ice cream.
We're gonna get it cracking with some whole milk and some full fat yogurt. I'm using the rawest form of chocolate today, so I'm adding cacao powder, and to sweeten it up, a half a cup of raw honey. Now that's 4 ingredients. I'm gonna blend that up. Now I'm gonna pour it into my ice cream machine. We're gonna leave this on for 25 minutes. Super easy. I'm adding a little bit of frozen chopped cherries to add some fruit. And look at that refreshing, healthy ice cream. Only 5 goddamn ingredients. For more recipes like this, comfort foods made with whole and unprocessed ingredients, check out my Real Food Cookbook. The link is in my description. Use code MMA for 30% off.